and I'm going to show the people of Gotham their city doesn't belong to the criminals and the corrupt. People need dramatic examples to shake them out of apathy, and I can't do that as Bruce Wayne. As a man, I'm flesh and blood. I can be ignored, I can be destroyed, but as a symbol, I can be incorruptible. I can be everlasting.
What symbol?
Something elemental, something terrifying.
Hello and welcome to The Road to the Batman. What do you want to watch is look back at the Dark Knight's standalone film history ahead of his next big screen iteration. I'm Ashley Hobley. Joining me today, Dylan Blight.
I'm Batman.
Alright, on this week's episode, we're talking about the big one, The Dark Knight. So, if you haven't watched this movie, why? Also, please be aware we'll be freely discussing anything and everything about the plot, themes, and ending of the film, so if you haven't watched it, come back later. So, with all that said, let's jump to a discussion of The Dark Knight.
Bruce, this is Harvey Dent.
Rachel's told me everything about you.
I certainly hope not. You once told me that we'd be together. Did you mean it?
Bruce, don't make me your only hope for normal life.
You're Alfred, right? That's right, sir. Any psychotic ex-boyfriends I should be aware of?
Oh, you have no idea.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're tonight's entertainment. Well, hello, beautiful. You look nervous.
I've seen now what it would have to become to stop men like him.
The night is darkest just before the dawn. I promise you, the dawn is coming. And here we go.
Directed by Christopher Nolan, screenplay by Christopher Nolan, Jonathan Nolan, story by Christopher Nolan and David S. Goyer, based on characters appearing in comics, published by DC Comics, Batman by Bob Kane with Bill Finger, starring Christian Bale, Michael Caine, Heath Ledger, Gary Oldman, Aaron Eckhart, Maggie Gyllenhaal, and Morgan Freeman. With the help of allies Lieutenant Jim Gordon and DA Harvey Dent, Batman has been able to keep a tight lid on crime in Gotham City, but when a vile young criminal calling himself the Joker suddenly throws the town into chaos, the Cape Crusader begins to thread a very fine line between heroism and vigilantism. Dylan, what are your memories of the first time watching The Dark Knight, and what did you think rewatching it this time?
Yeah, I watched it in cinema. I went with my girlfriend at that time. I think on a weekend. I was in high school or whatever when it came out. Loved it, of course. As did everyone in the world. I don't know. Like this is just the movie, right? Like everyone saw Dark Knight, and then everyone was obsessed with it for like years, for a year or so. Or I don't even know. It's weird to think about like the history of it because, of course, it's like in America it was like closely tied. Eventually became closely tied to like sort of tragic events, be that Heath Ledger or
he passed before
the film came out. True, yeah.
So,
but then it's like Heath Ledger's passing. You have the mass shooting. Like there's all these like sort of weird.
No, that was for Rises, right?
I don't remember if it was Rises,
I
but
think
he
it was
dressed
Rises.
up as a joke. He dressed up as Heath Ledger's Joker, so it's like becomes this weird sort of thing in the back end of the movie.
I think that because that was kind of given as a justification as to why the Rises didn't do as well. Financially, from memory.
But yeah, loved it. Still love it. Interesting enough, I'd watched it like I don't know how. I've watched this movie a lot, so I've watched this movie a bunch. I had it on DVD, Blu-ray. I think I own it on DVD, Blu-ray. I own a DVD. I own two different Blu-ray copies, like a normal one and then like a special edition one. And then I own it on 4K as well. And then I even went and watched it in the cinema in 2020 was the last time I watched it because my cinema did like there's no movies coming out. So they were showing a bunch of random shit to like get people to come in. And I think I talked about it when you want to watch.
Yeah.
So I only watched it a couple of years ago in the cinema. It'd be the only movie I've seen in the cinema like years after it had released, like not having watched it twice in its run, initial run sort of thing. So it was really, really, really good. I enjoyed watching it in the cinema more than watching it at home, but that's fine. The It's fantastic. It's everything I was talking about last week, where this is like solid. This is Nolan now. Like this is from the way the movie starts.
But it's Nolan, but you can still hear the dialogue.
Yeah, like he obviously gets amped up more, but this is it. Like this is Dark Knight, as far as I'm concerned. This is the first film in what becomes sort of now Nolan filmmaking. And I don't just mean Dark Knight Rises. I mean, you carry that through to literally every other movie starts doing Inception and whatever the hell else, through to Dunkirk. Like they're all got very similar sound mixing, pacing, like all these, like there's just a feel about the movies. But yeah, from the way the movie opens, like the slow build, the music, sort of the clock ticking in the background, those fantastic IMAX shot stuff, which it's always weird watching it at home because all of Nolan's movies with the IMAX stuff, you'll see the camera. It's okay in longer sequences, but it is like sort of weird sometimes when it's cutting between the IMAX stuff, which is full screen, and then it cuts back to normal, whatever he shot normal stuff on, where it's like letterboxed, of course, and it'll go to IMAX shot. I don't know if you noticed this. You probably don't even. Yeah, okay. But it's like the build up, all that sort of stuff. The action in this is just so much better than the first film. It's just like some of the best paced, tense action scenes. The film is really just a crime movie, but with a very elevated, over the top villain.
Yeah.
But at its heart, it is just a really crazy crime movie. Of course, Heath Ledger's Joker is deservingly Oscar winning. Fantastic, sort of the be all. I think whenever someone thinks best performance comic book, most people are going to think Heath Ledger's performance in this is sort of like the be all end all of sort of best performances in a comic book movie, quote unquote, or whatever. I don't know. I don't know if people have different thoughts these days, and some of the Marvel stuff that's coming out.
We've had
like
multiple Jokers since, so it's like
and multiple Jokers, of course. So there's all this sort of stuff. But yeah, it's an all time modern classic. I think that doesn't get most of people like our age or whatever love it. I think maybe some more snobby movie critic type people don't give it as much love potentially in like best of decade lists and stuff, because it's a comic book movie and still some people have that sort of weird connotation towards that stuff. But it's a movie. Like it's just a fantastic movie where you've got these really interesting arcs for the characters. I mean, apart from the Joker, but that's kind of his point. He's just an anarchist. But yeah, like Two-Face, obviously, Harvey Dent's like the most interesting arc and character throughout the movie, I would say. Bruce Wayne's fine. I don't think he gets. I think the most interesting thing, and again, we talked about this last week. Last movie, Bruce Wayne. This movie, Batman, and you primarily get Batman. Like, I don't know if you see Bruce for ages. Like, you see Batman first and Batman fight scene, all this sort of stuff. And then you finally see Bruce. It's like, oh yeah, I forgot there was a guy. And it sets up, obviously, the next movie. And I think the next movie comes back around to sort of the separation again. So you get a nice sort of arc and stuff. But yeah, I love it, of course. Yeah. Who doesn't love this movie?
Yeah, I love it as well. I think it's definitely up. It's probably my top 5 movies, I think, from the last time we talked about top 5 movies. Yeah, I think it maybe had been one of the first movies like I went and saw in the cinema twice, like because I needed to see it again. Yeah, just it builds obviously on the foundations of that first film and like improves every single way it possibly could. Every character gets like a bigger arc and like bigger character developments. Obviously, Heath Ledger, we'll dive into him deep in a second, but obviously Harvey. It's introduced, great arc. Commissioner Gordon gets, well, the eventual Commissioner Gordon obviously gets a great arc. But yeah, it's this massive crime story, and it's like the way that the plot kind of slowly develops over the movie, where you think Batman's got the upper hand, and then the Joker's got the upper hand, and all the twists and turns. Like you said, amazing action sequences, lots of cool fights, but then you get these cool car chases, and with the Bat Pod or whatever it's called, the bike thing, because he blows up the Batmobile. Yeah, just a fantastic movie from start to end. If I had any critiques, I think the suit looks a bit weird. Like, maybe it's just watching it, having seen a few different iterations. But like the cowl kind of looks like a weird shape, and like the cape is kind of weirdly over his suit, so it kind of looks like he's wearing a cloak all the time. I don't know. It was kind of an odd distraction for me throughout the film, but other than that, I think it's pretty faultless. You didn't notice anything? You'd be perfectly fine with the suit?
No, I mean, I just like it. Just looks like the Nolan Batman suit to me. I don't like it has a style, but I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I just think it's like a stylistic choice.
Yeah, I think it's obviously watching all these closely together, it's like that looks a little bit odd.
I do like this suit though. I own one of those really expensive adult toys that cost like $400 or $500. Yeah, like the really fucking expensive ones of the Christian Bale Batman, and like the Batpod bike as well. That's like obviously an audio podcast, but like quite a length, and that costs like $300-$400 as well. So yeah, I was like, there was a stage in my life where I was like,
this movie is my life.
Yeah.
I think yeah, that's how a lot of people were. Yeah, I think like you said, it's interesting the Bruce Wayne Batman kind of through line where Batman has kindly become his life, and he's kind of holding this potential hope up through the entire movie of him potentially giving it up if everything goes to plan. He can go live a happy life with Rachel or whatever. Obviously that doesn't work out, but it definitely,
But it is
Batman is definitely
something worth remembering.
Batman is definitely who he is in this movie. Bruce Wayne is definitely the mask, as we see. Talked about last episode. Yeah.
I think it's a purposeful choice, obviously based off what happened in the first movie, to mostly focus on Batman and not have him out of the suit more than necessary. And even when he's out of the suit, he's mostly just talking about getting out of the suit. Like he's talking about escaping being Batman. That's like the primary dialogue he has when he's just
even when he's out of the suit, he's doing Batman things.
Yeah, true. And I also think it's really important to remember that this film, because I think some people do forget that, this film does set up that Bruce, this version of Bruce at least, wants to stop being Batman eventually. Like this version of Bruce is a character who has a dream of being able to get help Gotham, but leave it in the hands of someone who can do it without having to do it from the shadows.
Yeah.
And he wants to go have a nice life elsewhere. And I think that's important to remember coming into Rises. Because I think a lot of people forgot that was actually an element of the character from this film. And then when, of course, we get to Rises and things happen, people are like, why? That doesn't make sense. I'm like, it does. It does. It makes sense. Maybe not for the version of Bruce that you're used to from comic books or whatever, but as far as this Nolan version of Batman, it makes sense. Yes.
Yeah, and I think, he's pretty good, Yeah. I think I also love a lot of his Bruce scenes, obviously he had the dinner party scenes and the when he's going to that restaurant with Harvey Dent and Rachel with the prima ballerina or whatever. It's like his scam of pulling all the ballerinas away to go cover for him so he can go to.
That wasn't even his idea, to be fair.
That's true. That was Alfred.
That was an Alfred thing.
That was an Alfred thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then even that last heartbreaking moment, when I think one of the most well, I guess it kind of ties into Rachel and Rachel's story throughout this movie. Obviously we've seen her. There's been some sort of gap between Begins and now. Obviously we got Maggie Gyllenhaal in the role. Hard to say, but a step up. She definitely adds a bit more weight and gravity to the role. Just because Maggie Gyllenhaal adds more weight, has more she has more credibility than Katie Holmes as a actress, which is harsh.
I think Katie Holmes is a good version of that character to be bouncing off the version of Bruce in the first film before Bruce goes away. It's almost like they make Christian Bale look younger, baggier clothes and all that sort of stuff. And it's like Katie Holmes sort of fits for that era. And then Maggie Gyllenhaal fits for the Bruce 10 years later or whatever it is, like Bruce is back period.
Yeah. Yeah, but obviously her arc through the film, like, torn between these two guys, and realizing that, you know, Bruce kind of is never going to leave this life, potentially is always going to be Batman. And, you know, she has to live a life. Writes that letter, leaves it for Alfred. Alfred's about to give it to him at the end of the movie. Realizes it's a mistake and burns the letter. Love that. Well, it's not even the end of the movie. It's like halfway through.
It's like,
right?
Yeah, it's like
after she dies
or whatever. Yeah, it's like and they have that line there. I think, you know, about sometimes a lie's better. I don't know, something about sometimes the lies hurts less than the truth, or, you know, something like that.
I mean, it's especially sad because it's like she sees him. The reason she writes that letter is because he's making this kind of cowardly act of letting Harvey pretend to be Batman. Meanwhile,
although I do agree, like, at that stage, like, when Harvey says, "I'm Batman," what's he supposed to do? Run up and be like, "No, I'm Batman." Like, it would have been dumb.
Yeah. There's nothing you can do.
No. I'm with Alfred on that one. Like,
or Bruce, yeah, I guess.
Yeah, Bruce, yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, let's talk about the Joker in the room. Heath Ledger. Let's start with the opening. This opening to this movie is fucking fantastic. You know, the slow build of, like, robbing that mob bank. Each of the con men or each of the robbers, like, taking each other out. And, like, yeah. Although, nobody noticed. So, the first robber we see is Joker, right?
Yeah, it's Joker.
Nobody noticed or cared that there's this guy with white makeup on his face and massive scars just hanging out on the sidewalk. No one thought that was suspicious.
No.
No
one cared. So, for kids these days, they wouldn't know. But back in the day, not everything leaked on the internet, right?
That's true.
But they had this. I can't remember if it was attached to a movie or something. Like, they showed this scene, or at least the first 5 minutes or something like that, as a prelude sort of thing. And Nolan's done this for a couple of his other films. And I remember just devouring reading about it. So, like, I don't know if maybe it was leaked somewhere on the internet, but...
The Dark Knight's opening sequence showing a bank raid by the Joker and closing montage of other scenes from the film was screened in selected IMAX screenings of I Am Legend.
There you go, I Am Legend, there you go. And he does the same thing for Rises as well. But if you want to look up what that was attached to, just out of interest. But I remember just devouring it, you know, like picking up Empire magazine, all these other film magazines, and like just reading people describe it. And and it may have been online somewhere, I'm not sure, but I certainly didn't see it. And this was like prior to just everything, being able to find everything on Twitter or TikTok or wherever the fuck, like Spider-Man trailers leaked, the last thing, and whatever else has been leaking lately. But yeah, I read so much about it that my anticipation coming into this film, I had like had this scene described to me, and it lived up and like surpassed the hype, because people would write about it and be like, and that's what I'm saying, like, even though you're saying I don't know if you, yeah, but just the whole description of IMAX stuff in this was the other thing too, because this was Nolan taking, I think at the time when they were filming this, and someone can fact check me, you or whoever, but I think maybe at the time there was like 5 IMAX cameras in the world or something like that. And usually they film for like animal documentaries or, you know, like that sort of stuff. And that's primarily what they were doing IMAX at the time. And Nolan sort of is the one, at least as far as I'm concerned, that pushed IMAX to be more of a format that you could use to shoot action movies, because people were like, you can't shoot action movies with IMAX cameras because they're way too big, they're just not usable.
Well, so I used to read, and you could only shoot for like 30 seconds to 2 minutes at a time. So
yeah. And it costs so much. The cameras are worth billions, millions of dollars. He actually broke one making this film, which was the funny thing, because I think there was 5 and he broke one, and there was only 4 left in the world. I think they broke it in the underground where the Joker's like rocket launching the car. Like, they had one fall off the back of a car at that point, and they just broke it. So,
man, imagine being that camera operator.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah. So, but yeah, I remember reading, people would describe it that like the IMAX opening of this film is like insane, and I used to just devour it and just read all about it. And yeah, I remember like sitting in the cinema, and obviously I wasn't watching it IMAX, which was the disappointing thing, but it still lived up to all my hype, because it is just such an intense, like, opening. And I think when I watched it, the thing it reminded me most of at the time was Heat, which I don't know if you've even watched. But
I have not.
yeah,
Infamously.
That doesn't surprise me. But yeah, it just reminded me of like sort of build up to something like that, or Michael Mann sort of movie, which is great. But yeah, this is, and I gotta be honest, I love Rises as well. As far as I'm concerned, the opening of both these movies are like some of the greatest, like sort of just opening setups to any movie ever. I love this and Rises openings.
Yeah, it's pretty fantastic. Like I said, the build to the reveal of Heath Ledger's Joker. Like, yeah.
It's on rewatch. You can always tell it's him because he has the walk. He has the sort of the body like limpness. Just the way he even the way he moves his head. Like he's still playing. He's not playing the Joker pretending not to be the Joker. He's just playing the Joker where he's got a mask on. So on rewatch, it's him. First time I watched it, I didn't know it was him. But on rewatch, it's just very easy to pick it's him. And all the way down to that final scene where he puts the grenade in the dude's mouth and all that. It's like such a fantastic opening.
Or like steps to the side because the bus is gone.
Yeah. I don't believe what makes you... Was it? I don't believe what kills you simply makes you stranger.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
Yeah. Heath Ledger's Joker. I mean, fantastic performance. Like you said, Academy Award winning. And I don't think it's just because he passed away.
It wasn't a sympathy. Academy has
proven in the last 12 months. They don't just give out awards for sympathy.
They don't just give out the sympathy ones as much as some people want them to. So,
I think I love the scene that I remember probably first is like the magic pencil. Like, what a great way to introduce himself to this group of monsters.
Ta-da!
Ta-da! Yeah, I mean, such a fantastic performance, such a juxtaposition to Jack Nicholson's performance as the Joker. Like, from any live action previous, like obviously Cesar Romero's Joker was very much the clown. This one is definitely more like a full-on psychopath. Like, like he says, like he wants to see he's just a man. He wants to see the world burn.
I think the other thing that, and I don't think they've talked about it much because Nolans don't like to talk much about Heath Ledger in this movie if they don't have to, because especially when the movie was coming out, there was just, I guess, a weird subject to really get into it. Like especially Heath's, there was they particularly, I remember dodging any subject around like what Heath did to prepare for the role, because there was all that stigma around, did the role cause him to overdose and all this sort of stuff. Was a topic of conversation.
So I just remembered, I think I've got an issue of Empire magazine still from that time. Yeah. From his, I think the issue before where they talked about the Dark Knight preparation, and then the one after he passed as well. So
there's one where it's just him in the street, where he has the gun. I think it was the front cover or whatever.
Yeah. Sorry.
That was before, I think. So yeah. Fuck, what was I going to say? Oh, I just feel like it's interesting because you got to wonder. I just wish I could be a fly on the wall to hear the conversations that Nolan and Jonathan, Christopher, Jonathan, and then Heath Ledger had about this character, because obviously they've got everything on the page, which is, these monologue-y sorts of things like, you want to know how I got these scars? Well, Daddy, when he got real angry. I'd love to know how they pictured that and what the conversations were to push Heath to get to where he is, because there's some things we know, like him clapping in the cell. That's a well-known improv thing he did. So obviously he got to a stage where he was very much like this character. He fully understood it, but to get to the stage where you fully understand this character, I just wonder how much was push from Nolan's, here's what we have on the page, here's how we view this character, or how much of it was actually just discovered via Heath. Because it could be either or. Could be more collaborative, I don't know, but it's just such a very a lot of it comes from a lot of it is his performance, but people seem to always forget that most of the most famous things, all of the famous things he does in this movie, they're in the script. Apart from the clap, they're all scripted. So I just wish I knew how we got there. you know, because you can read that line. You can read lines like that. I just want to know what it says. I don't know if the script's out there. Maybe I should try and find. But like, you got to wonder, does the script simply say, you want to know how I got these scars? Or does it say like
How
sadistic tone or like, you know what? Yeah, you know what I mean? Like it's just.
Yeah, I definitely get the impression that Heath brought a fair bit to the role, you know.
Yeah, I think he did too. I just want to know how they got him there. Like,
yeah, maybe when Nolan's towards the end of his career, whenever that might be. Yeah, might go back. But yeah, so many fantastic sequences. Like his entire plans along the way, like taking people out. You know, I think one of the most impressive shots in the entire movie is that hospital. Him in the nurse's outfit. As someone pointed out, how did Harvey Dent not notice? It was the Joker while wearing a mask. The power of masks, you know, you can't tell anybody apart.
That scene's so good too. And like, just like his look of frustration when he looks around, it's like pressing a button or whatever. Like, it's just, it's so good. Practical explosions. Love that shit.
Yeah, they blew up a real hospital. I mean,
yeah. Nolan doesn't fuck around.
No, probably know that now. But, you know, at the time. At the time, it's super impressive because nobody was doing that kind of stuff anymore.
I don't know what he doesn't do, to be honest. Like, there's nearly everything in all his movies. If he can, he will.
I don't think they actually went backwards in time in Tenet.
Okay, fair enough.
That's the only thing. If you think about all the major things, as possible to it, but you know,
if you think about all the major things in this movie, like they're practical.
Yeah.
Like I can't think of one stunt or big action scene that isn't primarily practical.
I don't think Christian Bale jumped off a roof in Hong Kong.
I think someone did.
They went flying around in Hong Kong. That's practical. There's no CGI Batman flying around.
I think someone jumped off something
initially.
And then it's special effects. Okay. But I mean, the fact that they even flipped that truck and everything. You know what I mean? Like
the car chase, incredible. You know, beautifully cut together, and even the small details like slaughter is the best medicine on the side of the truck. You know, him pulling out. Going up in level of guns from like a basic pistol to like a Tommy gun to a friggin' bazooka.
In the way he looks at like them each time in such disappointment, like, oh, this one didn't work.
Yeah, fantastic, and like all the like even just him talking to Batman, like the interrogation sequence, you know, him. Yeah, he's the kind of the part, like he's the flashiest part of the movie. The most impressive part, I don't know. He kind of he kind of takes over the movie, but in like a cool, not diminishing from anybody else's part way.
No, I don't feel like that's the thing. I feel like obviously the Joker is the standout character of the film, but I think Harvey Dent has the most interesting arc, and I really don't feel like the Joker distracts from Harvey Dent at all. Like,
no, I think they perfectly work together because ultimately the Joker's major plan was to turn Harvey Dent into a killer.
It's really interesting when you think about the fact that the Joker as the big bad isn't actually in the final scene of the movie.
No, yeah.
He doesn't get the big crescendo credit sort of moment.
No, he's just left dangling on the side of a building.
Yeah. Yeah, and then we go to the Two-Face scene, and the movie ends with Two-Face. And Two-Face is the one who gets to share that final sort of scene or whatever.
Well, yeah, let's talk about Aaron Eckhart. I mean, he's fantastic as well. Definitely has the great look. Yeah, and his progression over the movie, like, obviously there's a key turning point, which, you know, he's the one who gets saved very tragically and gets half his face burnt off. But even before that, I think everybody really liked Harvey Dent and like is a interesting character. Like, even, you know, fucking with, what's his face? Dasham. It's David Dashmore, right? As the.
Yeah. As the
goon.
Yeah, the goon, yeah.
Yeah. Lots of small cameos from other people. yeah, like fucking with him and with his double-sided coin. Like kind
I
of.
feel like the best thing is that the movie does such a good job at making you like Harvey Dent, to the point that you're not even like, fuck this guy, I need Bruce to get back with.
Yeah, you're not even upset that he's with Rachel.
Yeah, you're like happy that he's sort of with Rachel, and you're rooting for him, which is the most important thing, because by the time he turns and you have the downfall of this character, you're actually sad. Like you really wish the film, even though if you know comic books, you know exactly the way it's all going to go, and you know he's going to become this villain and everything. But the movie does such a good job at tricking you, even if you know all that. By the time it all starts rolling into effect, that you're sort of like, oh yeah, but maybe they'll change. Maybe they'll do a different thing. Maybe Batman will actually like save him and all this sort of stuff. And yeah, it is like a sad story really for a character. Like, and I'm glad it sort of wraps up one movie and they didn't leave him alive for something else, because it works. He's like such a good foil, and like analogy and sort of the other side of the coin, if you will, for Batman. It's like this, it's poetic, so it works perfectly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think he looks great. Well,
It's fucked up, but it looks great.
Yeah. It's a really interesting take on the Two-Face look. You know, obviously in the comics he's like splashed with acid, so he looks all kind of like weird and stuff. And obviously Tommy Lee Jones was purple for some reason. But no, for like half his face getting melted off, and full like missing parts of your cheek and that kind of stuff. I mean, it's the realistic version of or the whatever. But then he's also the suit that he wears in the second half of the movie. It's like half burnt up. I think that's kind of like a cool subtle thing that you probably don't notice like straight away.
It's like he goes and gets his suit that he was wearing.
Yeah,
is I think the thing. It's not like he burns one. He just goes and gets what he was wearing.
I don't know if the suit would still look like that, but I think you'd have to get... I don't know. Yeah, and then obviously the way he goes around on his murder spree, kind of after the Joker sets him off, yeah, kind of building up, blaming Gordon for, not believing him when he said he had dirty cops. It all kind of ties up perfectly, like all the suits that you've seen at the start of the movie. With him like saying he shouldn't have trusted these people, and then that coming back to be the reason Rachel got kidnapped and all this other stuff. Is like, yeah, there's no plot holes, which
no.
is a word that's like overused nowadays, but yeah, pretty fantastic, and you hear that final scene with him and Gordon, like, and his son, which is such a interesting thing, because obviously in the comics James Gordon's son goes on to become like
is a villain.
Yeah, kind of really interesting kind of stuff, obviously leading
because of this.
Yeah, I mean
stuff like this in his life. Yeah,
he's like, that I need to kill people because they'll come kill me or whatever. Yeah, obviously we get Batman ends the movie like the outcast and like the outsider, and apparently everybody believes he murdered a bunch of people, even though he saved a bunch of people. Interesting way to end the movie.
One of the only times I like the movie just sort of ends with the title of the movie. It's not corny, it just works.
Well, it works because they've been talking about this White Knight the entire movie. And then you go, The Dark Knight.
Yeah. That scene's great. Just the monologuing over the top and
him running away from the police.
The running away and just the hero we need.
The dogs. So many dogs in this movie.
Yeah, well, they're Batman's kryptonite, I guess.
Yeah. Well, not anymore. The Kevlar stuff. Also, we get this interesting arc with Lucius as well, Of he introduces this sonar detection thing, and Bruce kind of takes it to the extreme, and but he does the good guy thing and lets him destroy it at the end. But it's interesting, like the way the lengths he's willing to go. He's even got this interesting thing. Obviously, we get another tie-in. We get the guy at the beginning of the movie who's doing the accounts of the guy they're doing the merger with, and then he looks into Wayne Enterprises books, and that's how he kind of assumes Batman is Bruce Wayne.
Which makes sense.
Which makes sense, you know. You put all that together. Not the greatest idea to blackmail that guy, but...
But I love how Morgan Freeman delivers that whole...
Yeah.
You think Bruce Wayne is an insane guy who runs around at night fighting criminals, and you want to blackmail him? Like,
Yeah. Not a good idea. And then, you know, he ends up saving him later because, you know, he's going to testify or whatever. You know, that's a fun scene, you know, of him crashing his Lamborghini and then playing it off like he was trying to catch the light or whatever.
Yeah. He's like, says, like, you're trying to do it, save the guy, whatever. Christian Bale, the way he just sort of says,
Huh?
who, why, what's
Is he
going
important?
on? And then Gordon's like, you don't get out much, do you, Mr. Wayne?
I
You don't watch the news much, Mr. Wayne.
I love should I go to a hospital?
Yeah, should I go to a hospital? Yeah.
Oh, man. So many great moments in the movie. Yeah. Alfred, you know, he's fantastic as well. I love this. I do love the setting of, like, the penthouse. And him, like, being set up there. It seems like he's got his own bat suits hidden in a way in the safe room. You know, those poor people, like, banging in his bedroom. Think they're going to be fine, but, you know.
Oh, thank God he's got a safe room. Nope.
And then you've obviously got that crate, you know, the actual bat safe house.
New bat cave, yeah.
New bat cave, which looks cool. Kind of impractical that they have to go all this way to get to.
Yeah, I mean...
You do, but... Unless that's... is that under Wayne Manor? Is that the implication?
No.
No.
They don't show Wayne Manor at all in this movie, do they?
No. Well, it's getting
They just say
rebuilt.
it's being they're just like, it's getting rebuilt. You don't
Yeah.
really need to see it.
You don't. Any other facts and interesting moments you want to bring up?
No.
How do you feel
I
about
think
the
there's-
fairy scene? Do you think
Yeah, I like
Do you think that would actually happen though?
No. No.
Someone would pull that trigger so fast.
Someone would 100% pull that trigger. I always love though, because I think watching it, I just assume the criminals, you know, stereotypically would be the ones to sort of pull the trigger and they'll sort of prove a point or something. But I love how it is. I can't remember the actor's name, but the really big dude. I love how he just comes up and he's like, "Give it to me,
I'll do what
I'll
you
do
should have
what
had the
you
strength to
should
do
have done."
from the start. Yeah.
Yeah. And I always remember watching it for the first time and he grabbed it just in my brain, being like, and he just chucked it out the window. I was like, oh shit.
Damn. Yeah. And then the guy who thinks he can do it, and then he just has to sit himself back down.
Yeah. The toughest looking guy has the strength to throw it out the window, and then the weakest looking guy who thinks he has the strength to do it can't even pull a trigger.
Yeah. All right. The Dark Knight. Let us know what you thought of the movie by going to explosion.com/Twitter or jump into Discord at explosion.com/Discord. If you want to help us out here at What Do You Want to Watch, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or on Podchaser or anywhere where you can leave ratings for podcasts, or tell people about the show. And if you like this episode, thought it was worth $1, head on over to a Ko-fi page at explosion.com/support. Thank you very much for listening. Until next time, keep watching stuff, I guess.